And here in Africa, Sudan's ruling sovereign council says the country's military leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has lifted a state of emergency that was imposed following a coup on October the 25th last year. The Transitional Sovereign Council said in a statement that the decision was taken to create the right atmosphere for meaningful dialogue that achieves stability during the transitional period. The decision followed a meeting with senior military officials recommending that the state of emergency be lifted and people imprisoned under an emergency law be freed. It also came after the latest calls by United Nations Special Representative Volker Perthes demanded for the lifting of the state of emergency on Saturday. According to pro-democracy medics, Sunday has been rocked by mass protests since the coup, which has left nearly 100 people dead and hundreds wounded. And for an in-depth look into the Sudanese situation, a global affairs analyst, Collins Owinke, joins me virtually from Belgium. Good to have you join us.
Thank you, Precious, for having me.
Let me get your thoughts on this latest development in Sudan, where the military rulers there have now lifted a state of emergency that was put in place October last year. What do you think is the motivation for this?
The motivation for the lifting of the state of emergency in Sudan is actually something that had to come. It is, an action that is well overdue. The protest against the state of emergency was no longer sustainable. In the meantime, the country was actually collapsing economically, politically, and otherwise. And so, the military leader, Burhan, had no option but to lift it. Now, do not forget that, the pressure, not only internal pressure from pro-democracy movements and all of that, but also internationally, has actually been mounting. As a matter of fact, up to as recently as a couple of days ago, when the United Nations High Representative there actually made some, very, very sweeping call on the government to do something. So, no, it couldn't be sustained anymore, and so, it had to be lifted if the military junta is to come anywhere close to the objective that he set for himself and the Sovereign Military Council.
And that those who are wondering whether this is the beginning of transition to democracy in Sudan, we know that the military released a document, I think sometimes last year or earlier this year, where they said that there will be election conducted July next year because they want to hand over to a democratically elected government. But there are those who have said that there should be cautious optimism because of what we've seen in Mali and Guinea. So let me ask you how willing you think the military is in terms of losing their foothold on power and some key companies that serve like as the lever of the Sudan's economy.
Well, I will subscribe to that school of thought that cautions that people should take this with cautious optimism because, as a matter of fact, Sudan shouldn't have been where it is now, where there was a coup within a coup, a military coup within a military coup. So anything could happen. But let us, play the naivety for a moment and accept that this time around the military junta means well. As a matter of fact, indeed, the military government, appears to be losing it. Now, they have carved into pressure by actually, lifting the state of emergency. Now, during the period of the state of emergency, there were very significant upheavals. Protest was widespread and all of that. Now that officially the state of emergency has been lifted, it remains to be seen how they are going to be able to contain the unrest, the protest going up and down the country. Now, the only thing that can actually restore some semblance of stability in Sudan is if the military junta actually lives true to the pledge he made to release political prisoners. Now, people could take that as some reasons that he could be trusted to then start that process of transition to democracy, and letting the Sudanese people, the different factions, to come on the table and begin to negotiate. Now, one can only expect that immediately after the lifting of the state of emergency, which has just happened, that he will follow through with release of political prisoners, and then talks will begin. Only when that happens that one can expect that transition to democracy will then effectively begin.
I will continue to watch and see how that plays out. Thank you so much for talking to us as always. Global Affairs Analyst Collins Oweke.
Thank you.